We will implode more patriotic news. Thank you. Trump discovers what Obama wasted $300 million on in Afghanistan, instantly ends program. Former President Barack Obama wasted millions of taxpayers' money in order to pay the salaries of the so-called ghost soldiers and police officers in Afghanistan. However, it was found out recently that these ghost soldiers are still being paid, but they don't actually exist. This means that they can't participate in any operation against the jihadist enemies, which leaves the Allied forces short-handed. Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction, John Sobko, recently was interviewed by Cheryl Atkinson of Full Measure about his problem. Sobko said that Pentagon under President Trump found out about this problem, which is worse than anyone thought. Conservative Nation reports, "We've been raising this concern about ghosts going back a number of years," stated Sobko. "Actually, I want to say we heard about it from Afghan President Ashraf Ghani years ago before he became president. He warned me about ghosts, so we started looking 3 years ago. What we're talking about are policemen, Afghan military, Afghan civil servants who don't exist or they have multiple identity cards and we're paying their salaries," he explained. "By we I mean the United States and the international community. And we started finding out that we had no capacity to measure the number of soldiers, teachers, doctors, military people who we are paying their salaries. Although these people don't actually exist, they are still being paid. The money has gone to personnel accounts." Fox News reported in October that the fraud could have amounted to more than $300 million annually. Most of soldiers and police forces that American taxpayers have paid for don't even exist in real life. Or in other words, U.S. taxpayers have spent more than $70 billion to non-existing people. According to Sobko, this is a major fraud and commanders and generals actually took the money of the ghosts for themselves. Conservative Nation reports, and I remember President Ghani again, at that time he wasn't president, saying, "John, you the United States government are paying the salary of an Afghan who's a teacher, he's a civil servant, he's a doctor, he is a policeman, and he's a soldier. And it's the same Afghan. And he doesn't exist," Sobko explained. "It's not just the salaries," he added. "But we're funding schools based upon the number of students, so if you invent or inflate the number of students, you're going to be paying more money. On the soldiers and the police, we're paying for extra boots, for food, for everything else, logistics for numbers that don't exist." Sobko also added that Pentagon was alerted to this problem, but it never did anything because Obama was the president. However, now that Trump's in charge, there will be implemented some measures to stop the frauds. According to the Independent Journal Review, Atkinson noted that the Pentagon had implemented a biometric system that checked such things as fingerprints, photographs and even blood type in an effort to obtain proof of life of Afghan service members in order to weed out the non-existent ghosts that have cost taxpayers so much. Something like this can only appear under Obama's administration. Thank God we have Trump as president right now. There will be no more frauds. Melania gives millions back to taxpayers that Michelle Obama greedily devoured. Melania is setting a totally different tone than the last First Lady. Michelle Obama was known for wasting so much taxpayer money we eventually lost count. Thankfully, Melania is different. Her first official move was to decrease the East Wing staff and slash her office's expenses. Advertisement: she announced she will be downsizing her staff to just 10 people, shaming the extravagance of Michelle, who had at least 26 full-time, highly paid employees at her beck and call. Melania has already saved America millions in just one move. But how much in hard dollars is Melania saving taxpayers? Approximately $5.1 million a year, according to Forbes. Overall, the Trump White House is saving a total of $22 million by running a much leaner operation. But that's not all. For the first time in the history of White House, visitors who take the public tour will now be able to view the famous White House movie theater, thanks to a new order by First Lady Melania Trump. under Bill and Hillary Clinton and Barack and Michelle Obama. If you wanted to see the special areas of the White House, you had to pay to play. We all remember Bill Clinton literally selling Honest Abe's bedroom by the night, making it like a cheap motel on the wrong side of the tracks and bringing dishonor to the office. But the Trumps, as promised, are giving the White House and the government itself back to the people. Melania announced that the new tour will help bring back the idea of the people's house by giving more people access to the rich history and amazing traditions. The move gives more ordinary citizens access to the White House is the exact opposite of how former President Barack Obama and First Lady Michelle treated the residents. Those two were famous for hosting celebrities and star-studded events while suspending public citizen tours of the White House for 8 months in 2013. The East Wing Theater holds 51 seats along tiered rows. It was a cloakroom before President Franklin D. Roosevelt converted it in 1942, according to Independent Journal Review. Advertisement: share this as you think Melania is a much better First Lady than any we have had in years. Just and John McCain just left Washington, D.C. After teaming up with the Democrats and the two loser GOP senators in voting against an Obamacare repeal on Friday, John McCain got news on his next stop. He has to return to Arizona ASAP for treatment for his brain cancer. Just after his tragic diagnosis, McCain, 80, rushed back to the Senate Tuesday to support engaging in a debate over health care reform. He wasn't supportive when it counted though. Advertisement: during his floor speech on Tuesday, the long-tenured senator said that he would only be in D.C. for a few days. He obviously has a lot on his mind. "I'm going home for a while to treat my illness," the GOP senator said. "I have every intention of returning here and giving many of you cause to regret all the nice things you said about me," he added. There have been no specifics of McCain's treatment released to the public. Radiation and chemotherapy are definitely treatments of choice for glioblastoma. Glioblastoma is the type of cancer that he was diagnosed with during a routine doctor appointment. Radiation won't occur until the tumor has been excised. The standard treatment is a combination of chemotherapy and a drug called temozolomide, which is an oral drug that is taken every day with radiation to the tumor, plus an area of an inch surrounding the tumor because there are microscopic cells that can't be seen in an MRI in the area, Dr. Mark Gilbert, a senior investigator and chief of the neuro-oncology branch, told Newsweek when asked how glioblastoma is typically treated. After that, patients receive the temozolomide, the chemotherapy alone. The Arizona senator wanted the Senate to take on the day before his exodus from D.C. for treatment. He wanted to lead the floor debate, but he was unable because he had to leave. Wanted the Senate to take up the National Defense Authorization Act prior to. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell attempted to get unanimous consent after the vote to proceed to the defense bill early Friday morning, but encountered an objection from Senator Rand Paul, Ardaki. Will you pray for McCain? Trump woke to find huge surprise 6 months into presidency. The liberals and the media and the rest of Trump's enemies were sure that Trump's presidency would be a disaster. A total disaster, they all predicted. Not a kind word was said. Which was strange because if the Democrats had tried to work with him, Trump's accomplishments would put him on Mount Rushmore. But without them, Trump still did amazing things. This is a remarkably impressive and totally accurate list of Trump's accomplishments in his first 6 months. We would like to thank the good reporters at the Gateway Pundit for putting this list together. Stock market in President Trump's first 6 months since the election and since his inauguration, the U.S. stock markets are at record highs and millions of Americans are benefiting in their retirement savings accounts. The Dow daily closing stock market average has risen 18% since the election on November 8. On November 9 the Dow closed at 18,332. Yesterday on July 19 the Dow closed at 21,641 for another all-time stock market closing high. Since the election, the Dow has set a new all-time closing high 1 out of every 4 days the market is open. Since the inauguration on January 20 the Dow is up 9%. It was at 19,827 on January 20th. The Dow took just 66 days to climb from 19,000 to above 21,000, the fastest 2,000-point run ever. The Dow closed above 19,000 for the first time on November 22 and closed above 21,000 on March 1. The Dow closed above 20,000 on January 25 and the March 1 rally matched the fastest ever 1,000-point increase in the Dow at 24 days. On February 28 President Trump matched President Reagan's 1987 record for most continuous closing high trading days when the Dow reached a new high for its 12th day in a row. The S&P 500 and the Nasdaq have both set new all-time highs during this period. The U.S. stock market gained $4 trillion in wealth since Trump was elected. The S&P 500 also broke $20 trillion for the first time in its history. U.S. debt as of today, the U.S. debt has decreased under President Trump since his inauguration by -$103 billion. President Obama increased the U.S. debt in his first 6 months more than $974 billion or nearly $1 trillion. The difference between Presidents Trump and Obama is more than $1 trillion. Jobs. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, President Trump added a projected 1,027,000 jobs in his first 6 months, January through June 2017. President Obama on the other hand lost more than 3,826,000 jobs in his first 6 months. Unemployment. Also according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the unemployment rate since President Trump's inauguration decreased from 4.8% to 4.4%. January through June 2017. The unemployment rate in January 2017 was 4.8% and by June it was down to 4.4%. Unemployment under President Obama on the other hand moved in the opposite direction. In his first 6 months as president, the U.S. unemployment rate increased each month from 7.8% in January 2009 to 9.5% by June of 2009. Inflation. As noted earlier this week, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the U.S. inflation rate decreased to an 8-month low in June to 1.6%. This is in part due to President Trump's energy policies that are helping average Americans with cheaper gas and electricity. Housing sales are red hot in the U.S. right now. In 2011, houses for sale were on the market an average 84 days. This year, it's just 45 days. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, there were nearly twice as many U.S. housing sales in the past couple of months as there were under President Obama in 2009 during the same time period. The annualized housing sales rate for May 2017 is reported at 610,000, where in 2009 this amount was only 376,000. Decrease in regulations. One of the first things that President Trump did in office was to reduce the number of burdensome regulations put in place during the Obama era. In January, President Trump signed his 2-for-1 executive order mandating that for every new regulation, 2 regulations needed to be revoked. Even far-left Politico notes that significant new federal regulations since Trump's inauguration have slowed to an almost total halt. Regulations cost Americans and American companies money to implement and maintain. Reducing or halting regulations allows companies to spend their money on more prudent money-making areas. Other results. The U.S. Manufacturing Index soared to a 33-year high in President Trump's first 6 months, which was the best number since 1983 under President Reagan. The Federal Reserve has increased interest rates 3 times since President Trump was elected into office in November. The Fed increased interest rates only once in Obama's 8 years prior to the increase after President Trump's winning the election in November. Illegal immigration is down almost 70% under President Trump. NATO announced allied spending is up $10 billion because of President Trump. After being nominated by President Trump, constitutionalist Judge Neil Gorsuch was confirmed and sworn in as Supreme Court Justice in early April. The President has signed around 150 executive orders, memoranda and proclamations as of July 19, including dismantling Obama's climate change initiatives, travel bans for individuals from a select number of countries embroiled in terrorist atrocities, enforcing regulatory reform, protecting law enforcement, mandating for every new regulation to eliminate 2, defeating ISIS, rebuilding the military, building a border wall, cutting funding for sanctuary cities, approving pipelines, reducing regulations on manufacturers, placing a hiring freeze on federal employees, exiting the U.S. from the TPP. Share this with all Trump supporters and especially with all Trump doubters. Ivanka makes paparazzi's jaws hit floor with the dress she wore to take kids on vacation. Ivanka Trump, together with her husband Jared Kushner and youngest son Theodore, was pictured leaving her home in Washington, D.C. on Friday morning. She wore a black fit and flare dress with a colorful panel on the front and accessorized the outfit with black sunglasses, black drop earrings, and black stilettos. She looked very elegant. Her hair was straight and she kept her makeup natural. While she was carrying her son on her hip, her husband was right behind her in a more casual outfit. He wore a light blue shirt, navy jeans, and white sneakers. Theodore, their youngest son, was seen wearing red trousers, and a blue and white check short-sleeve shirt. His outfit was completed with a pair of navy sandals and white socks. Daily Mail reports both Jared and Ivanka looked to be in high spirits as they left their D.C. home with their youngest child in tow, before making their way into a waiting SUV, which was headed to New York City, where Ivanka had a meeting at the UN with Secretary General Antonio Guterres. The couple's other children Arabella and Joseph were already waiting for their parents and their younger brother in the car, accompanied by Secret Service agents. Assistants were helping the family to load the car with their bags and suitcases. It appears that the family is going away for the weekend. Daily Mail reports President Donald Trump is due to travel to Long Island today, and his daughter and her family may well be set to join him on his trip. It is also possible that they are headed to spend the weekend at their home in New Jersey, where they often enjoy weekends away together. This was the first time Ivanka was pictured after she attended President Trump's joint news conference with Lebanese Prime Minister Saad Hariri in the Rose Garden. Her husband Jared was also at this conference.